subscribe to our YouTube channel, Joy Learning TV.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Joy Learning. And today, like I always say, it is science time. Okay, before I go on, I say hello and I hope you are all doing great. Good. Get glued to your seat once again. Did you come with your book? What about your pen? Because I would want to see that the assignment that I gave you are just there and all your answers are right. Please, I beg you, keep bringing your assignments because the volumes of work that I'm actually getting are just not so kicking. They are not kicking me. Let me feel it. I want it to be more so that I can mention your names. All right, let's get straight into the answers to previous lesson. And I'm always a science facilitator, and then I'm Opoku. Okay, let's hit it straight ahead. Now, the previous lesson that we had was on alloys. And the question that I gave you was, what is an alloy? An alloy is a mixture of two or more metals, or a metal and then a non-metal. So you can have a metal one or two different metals, and then you must now get them in their molten state. How do you do that? You must now melt them, apply enough heat or temperature to it so that it can now change from the liquid form in the solid form into the liquid form. Yes, it must now be melted so that you can now put them together and then an alloy is formed. Now, an example of an alloy I have here is lithium and then oxygen, giving us lithium oxide. So we have lithium as a metal and then oxygen as a non-metal, giving us lithium oxide. So lithium here, oxygen here, giving us lithium oxide. Okay, we're also asked to find three different alloys, their compositions, their properties, and what they can be used for. So we have first as stainless steel. The first alloy is stainless steel, and then the composition of stainless steel is iron, chromium, and then almighty carbon. Now, stainless steel has the property of just being a mild steel, and then it doesn't undergo rusting. It can stay for longer periods of time without undergoing rusting. It's also used for making surgical equipment and also for ornament. The other one is bronze. The other alloy is bronze, and the composition of bronze is copper and tin. And then it looks brownish in appearance actually. When you look at any bronze, it looks brownish in color or appearance. They are also used for making ornaments. They are also used for making school bells, coins, medals, church bells, among other things. Then we go to duralumin as the third alloy. Now this duralumin is composed or made up of aluminium, copper, and then manganese. Now the properties are, it has lower density. It is very light. It is not heavy. It does not corrode, and then it is stronger than pure aluminium. If duralumin is used in making of ships, aircraft, railway coaches, among other things, let's talk about aircraft. If duralumin were to rust, then it means that if an aeroplane is not kept in a hangar, okay, it's not kept at where aircraft are kept, and then it just left under the mercy of the weather, when it rains on it, then definitely it will rust. Now just look at an airplane that is getting rusted. Well, there's one at airports actually that was known, or that was used as a restaurant. Okay, and then it's also very light in weight. That's how come it's able to fly. If aircrafts are supposed to actually rust, then it means that when it goes higher in altitude, whereby it gets to the clouds, and then water gets into it, then definitely rusting. Okay. Then we also said or spoke about the difference between rusting and corrosion. Rusting, we said, is a gradual wearing away or peeling off of the surface of iron. due to the reaction of oxygen in the presence of moisture. So whenever we talk about rusting, rusting has to do with iron that has a chemical reaction between water and then air. And then corrosion of metals is also the gradual wearing off of the surface of a metal due to the chemical reactions between a metal and an environment. So the corrosion is also the same thing, but with corrosion, it happens with other metals which are not iron. Okay. Now the conditions that I expected you to know about rusting involve iron, water, and then air. Or I have here iron, moisture or water, atmospheric oxygen or air. So these are the conditions that will always allow or make rusting occur. Look at this picture. You can see a tree, you can see the sunlight, and then you can see the soil. In the soil you have roots and the root hairs. That brings us to the next topic for today. Topic for today is termed as photosynthesis. Photosynthesis. Okay. By the end of the lesson, the learner will be able to, one, explain the concept of photosynthesis. Two, explain why it is the primary source of energy in the ecosystem. Describe how the energy from the sun is converted into plant food. Number 4 is outline the factors necessary for photosynthesis and give the functions of each of them. The last one is you state the importance of photosynthesis to plants and animals. So you can give as many as you want. Okay. The sun as the primary source of energy. Why do you think the sun is the primary source of energy on Earth? The main reason why the sun is the primary source of energy on Earth is that it is the sun that helps plants to be able to produce food. It is the sun that helps plants to be able to produce food. What will be the world when there are the complete absence of plants? If there is no plant, then how can we even feed? Because whatever we eat depends on the plant. I'm saying it again. Whatever food that we eat depends on the plant. So if we don't have plants, we will not have food to eat as humans. Yes, I know what you were just thinking about. You said, but we have meat, we have eggs. Okay, what foods were given to these meat and then these eggs, or the fowls and then the livestock, before they were able to provide us with the milk, the meat, and then the eggs? How did they come about? By giving them rice grain and all those cereals for their feed. And majority of the feed these animals eat are obtained from plants. And that is the reason why I keep saying that the plant is the major supplier of food for every living organism. So, with the plant, the main energy is also obtained from the sun. Without the sun, plants will not be able to produce or give out food. The food can either be by their leaves, by their roots, by the back of the plant, or by the fruits and then the seeds they produce. Okay. Now the continuous input of energy released by the sun sustains the process of life. That is what I've explained earlier. Sunlight is a major source of energy for all organisms. So if any organism will be able to have what is called survival or sustenance, that organism fully depends on plants. Now, producers such as algae, plant, and then cyanobacteria use the energy from the sunlight to make organic matter from carbon dioxide and then water. So when I talk about algae, I'm talking about plants. Now we have a plant called Spirogyra. I know it's kind of a big word, Spirogyra. And Spirogyra is actually very common in bathrooms that are not covered. So in our local parlance, we commonly call them Opoku or Apotobibre. The English name is called spirogyra. Okay. Now this is the foundation of all energy flow through almost all food webs. So plant, with the help of plant, that is the foundation or beginning of energy in all food web. And I brought this complex food web so that you would understand. Now with the food web, we have what is called primary producers, and then we have primary consumers. We also have secondary consumers, and the last one is tertiary consumers. Now what then are primary producers? Primary producers are basically plants. Now these plants, because they are able to produce their own food, they are termed as primary producers. So we have phytoplankton here, we have aquatic vegetation. Those are trees or plants that you see or find in water bodies, and then we have other vegetations. So these ones are what is called primary producers because they are able to produce their own food with the help from the sun. With no sun, that means that these ones will not be able to produce their own food. And then every other living organism is so reliant on these primary producers. So you can see that the benthic invertebrates also feed on phytoplankton, and then there's aquatic vegetation is also used by herbivorous ducks. We also have geese and mute swans also using the so it's like the process goes on and on and on. Now the first layer after the primary producers are what is called the herbivores. Herbivores are also living organisms that feed on only plants. They feed on herbs, herbivores, herbs. Good. Then we have the primary consumers that also feed on these herbivores. Secondary consumers also there, and the human beings are also classified as tertiary consumers. So if the plants do not produce their own food, all these creatures or organisms that you have displayed here will not be able to feed, and so life will end for all of them. All right. All organisms need energy to survive, sustain, and grow. This energy is obtained by animals and humans when they consume food. So food is the primary source of energy for us all. When humans are hungry, we make food using vegetables, meat, dairy products, and so on. So whenever you are hungry, you can go to your kitchen and get some vegetables or some milk, some meat, and then you can get your meal done. So you see a black woman in her own kitchen and then busy doing her own cooking. And you can see a bit of vegetables being displayed. So she's just cooking and then just happy doing it. So it means that when we human beings are hungry, what do? We cook. We make our own food and eat using vegetables. All right. And other animal products. All right. When animals, on the other hand, are hungry, they eat plants. That is when these animals I'm talking about here are what is termed as herbivores or herbivorous animals. These are animals that feed specifically or only on plants, like the sheep, the goats, the cattle, and then the other ones. Then we have other animals too that would also feed when they are hungry on other animals. So they feed on other animals, and those ones are what is called carnivores or carnivorous animals. Okay, so this is a herbivore feeding on the grass, and this one is also a carnivore. That is a lion that is just devouring the caca of a buffalo. So as you can see, the lion is here is a carnivore, and then the sheep is a herbivore. Okay, let's go on. Now, if animals will feed on both plants and animals, whenever animals go hungry, they either feed on plants or other animals. When human beings are also hungry, we cook our food using both animal and then plant products. Then the question is, what do plants eat? As a plant, how will it feed? How do they prepare their food? Plants prepare their food by using a process called photosynthesis. Photosynthesis. Now, what you also have in mind is that we have different kinds of plants, or we have two main kinds of plants. In the parts of our world, we are very, very familiar with green plants, or plants that actually bear green leaves. So green leaves, or plants that produce green leaves, always or only use photosynthesis to produce their food. But the other part, where it's not actually common in the tropics, so when you go to the temperate regions, they have the kind of plants that are termed as, yes, yeah, I said variegated plants, whereby on one plant that has a leaf, you may have different colors on that leaf. You may have red, you may have blue, you may have white, you may have yellow on one leaf. That's how they are. And they also produce their food using a different process. But we are going to stick to the common ones, which is the green plant, or the green plants, or plants that actually have green leaves. All right. So the term photosynthesis comes from two separate words. So whenever you hear the term photosynthesis, it comes from two main words. The first one is photo. And whenever you hear photo, it has to do with light. Photo, light. Whenever you are taking a picture and then you pose before the camera, then you see the flash, the light, photo. And anybody who is a photographer will also have to use light before the photograph can be printed. So photo meaning light. And then you have synthesis, meaning bringing together or putting together. Synthesis, bringing together or putting together. So this means that light is used to produce something which provides energy for plants. So the light, which is the photo, okay, is used so that some things can be brought together, and those things provide energy for plants. Okay. Photosynthesis is the process by which energy from the sun is used by green plants to produce glucose from carbon dioxide and water. I've underlined green plants because only green plants produce their own food by using a process called synthesis. So whereby green plants are able to produce glucose from carbon dioxide and water by using the sunlight. The glucose is used as the energy by the plant, and with this, oxygen is given up as byproduct. So I'm also underlining byproduct. So the glucose is used as the energy by the plant, and with this, oxygen is given up as byproduct. So it means that the energy that is being given to the plant when it prepares its food is the glucose. And as it prepares the food, something is also given off or given out, which is called oxygen. Oxygen. And oxygen now becomes a byproduct. Byproducts are products that wasn't intentionally made. So the purpose for that wasn't for the byproduct. Actually occurred by chance, actually. So it's like doing something, and then you also have a result attached to what you're actually aiming for. So when you have crude oil, which I commonly use every time, whereby you see your diesel, petrol, your kerosene, your fuel for airplanes and all that, there is something extra that, even though it's not needed or wasn't part of what the result should be, but then it becomes a combining factor, and it is called bitumen, what is commonly called coal tar. So as you get all these fuel from the crude oil, bitumen or coal tar is also used on our roads. All right, so if glucose is produced and then used as the energy for a plant, how then can the plant now prepare its food? If human beings prepare its food, or prepare our food by using vegetables and then other products, if animals will also feed on plants and then other animals, then how will the plant themselves be able to produce their own food? Okay. And I term it bringing ingredients together. ingredients are what the plants will be using to prepare their food. So if you are cooking rice and stew, definitely some of the ingredients a human being will use is rice, use oil, use tomato, and these are the ingredients. So what are the ingredients that plants would also have to bring together to be able to produce their own food? All right. Plants absorb energy from the sun with the help from the green pigment, which is called chlorophyll, derived from the organelle called chloroplast. Now, when you pick the animal cell and you pick the plant cell, there's only one organelle that is common in plant cell, which is not in animal cell, and that is what is called the chloroplast. And the chloroplast is the organelle that gives or provides every green plant with the greenish color on its leaf. Now, plants absorb water and other minerals from the soil with the help of their root hairs. So the first one is that we need green leaves that contain chlorophyll. That's the first ingredient. The other one is that we also need water and then mineral salts or mineral from the soil that are absorbed into the plants by the root hairs. Okay. Number 3, we need our almighty carbon dioxide. Now, carbon dioxide is also used in the ingredient of plant. So as we take in oxygen, that is also given out as byproduct by a plant. We also take it into our system, undergo what is called aerobic respiration, bring carbon dioxide out of our system, which is very, very valuable to plants, because without carbon dioxide, it means that plants wouldn't get all the ingredients that are necessary for it to produce their own food. So that is also one factor that plants also require. So plants absorb carbon dioxide from the air using the pores on the surface of leaves, termed as stomata of the leaves. So get this right. These are the ingredients used by plants to produce their own food. The first one is that every plant, before it must prepare its own food, must need green leaf, or what is called chlorophyll, if it must go through the process of photosynthesis. Secondly, it also requires water and then minerals from the soil. Okay, and then it must also get what is called carbon dioxide. And then obviously it also needs energy, which is the light ray from the sun. So these are the main 4 ingredients that every green plant needs to prepare its own food through a process called photosynthesis. And then this is a very clear picture of how a leaf, when it is zoomed, when I say zoomed, when it is looked under a microscope, looks like. When you look onto a leaf using a microscope, this is what you see. Now you see something here, and then you see another here. And that tells you that that is where the stomata of the leaves are located. Okay. Okay. Now let's go on. Good. Now I have also gotten a very clear picture of how the stomata of the leaf looks like. So per this, we see an opening stomata on the leaf. That is where carbon dioxide diffuses into. Actually, there are so many carbon atoms or compounds in the atmosphere, and this is as a result of human beings we take in from the atmosphere, and then we breathe out carbon dioxide. So we take oxygen into our system, takes it through so many processes, the lungs and all that, alveoli, bronchi and all that, and then we give out what the body doesn't want as carbon dioxide. Now the carbon dioxide is obtained from burning off the bush or burn of vegetation. Also, it's also obtained from fumes from vehicles. And if somebody is actually standing or sitting somewhere and also smoking, then carbon atoms are also released into the atmosphere. Too much carbon be used. Now, who uses them is the plant. The stomata of the leaves is where the carbon atoms or carbon dioxide pass through into the plant. So that is where you see a diagram telling you the direction of the carbon dioxide into the stomata. So these are the three main processes that are very, very needed in the cooking ingredient. So I also term the leaf the hub of the cooking. The leaf is where all the cooking actually takes place. When I say cooking, I don't mean that fire is set on the leaf. No, I mean that it is a way whereby the plant is able to also prepare its own food by using sunlight and other essential okay, now we know what is needed. So we know we have sunlight, we know we have chlorophyll, we know we have water and minerals from the soil, and then we also have carbon dioxide. All right, now let's say all these things have now gotten into the leaf. Or do you go over? Okay, the light rays from the sun are being trapped by the green pigment you have in the leaf. Okay, and then carbon dioxide also diffuses into the stomata of the leaf. All right. Water and minerals also are found in the soil, and with the help of the root hairs of the plant, the root hairs absorbs this water and mineral salt, passes it through the stem, and then gets into the leaves of the plant. Okay, good. All right, now all the ingredients are ready. How is the process like? Okay, and that's what is called the chemical reaction in the leaf. In the leaves, the chemical reaction begins with the separation of the molecules that form water into hydrogen and then oxygen. So inside the leaf, what happens is that I told you about absorption of water by the root hairs. So as the water gets into the leaf, it must now be broken down into different molecules, whereby you have hydrogen molecules at one side, oxygen molecules at one side. And then what happens is that the hydrogen molecules will now go and join the carbon dioxide atoms that were absorbed of the leaf, and then it forms something. Let's see. Hydrogen and the carbon dioxide comes together to form a product called or known as glucose. So the hydrogen atoms that have been just taken off from water will now come together with the carbon dioxide particles or atoms and then form what is called glucose. And the glucose is what is termed as plant food or food for the plant. So that is the food the plant needs. So basically, the carbon dioxide is absorbed, and then the atoms of hydrogen that are taken away from water comes together, and then we have our almighty glucose, which is food for the plant. All right. The oxygen molecules that are not needed anymore or that are not in usage are also given out as a byproduct. Okay, now let's get a word equation for the whole process. So the equation is that you need carbon dioxide, you also need water, you need sunlight. Now, I know you are a bit skeptical, but if you have carbon dioxide, we have water, we have sunlight, what about that thing that you said? I said chlorophyll. That is why you have green pigmentation. So the yellow pigmentation shows you that there's light rays from the sun. The green pigmentation shows you that there is also chlorophyll presence. So in other books, you will see chlorophyll written here. All right, so we have carbon dioxide, water, sunlight, chlorophyll. These are the four major cooking ingredients for plants to be able to produce their own food. And then the carbon dioxide atoms or particles will now go and join the water molecules, the hydrogen molecules of water when they are actually separated to form what is called almighty glucose. And then oxygen is given out as a byproduct. I'm saying that in other books, you will see chlorophyll. The picture here is that the yellow lining or layer on top of it is what is termed as the sun rays or light, and then the green is the chlorophyll. Okay, now let's go to the chemical equation of photosynthesis. So you have carbon dioxide, you have water, you have sugar or glucose, and then you have your oxygen. And then you see here we have the chlorophyll underneath. So this one is a two-sided this way to the right or to the left, there's a different thing. When it goes to the right, a different thing. So if this circle or this arrow is supposed to be cleaned, then it means that this is how photosynthesis goes about. And then when you eat food, okay, you get energy and you also take in oxygen and taking into your tissues, and then under what is called aerobic respiration, you respire and then give out carbon dioxide and water. So the two-sided effect, whereby you have glucose and water as the product of photosynthesis, and then you also have carbon dioxide and then water as the product for respiration. Factors for photosynthesis. Now, what are needed? The materials: carbon dioxide, water, sunlight, and chlorophyll. These are the main ones that are needed. Okay, so as you have our light here, we see that carbon dioxide, water, sunlight, and all that are what is needed here. But you can never have this diagram before. Actually, in every chemical equation, what you have there should be balanced. I'll go over, but let me just skip and then I'll come back to talk about that one. Okay, right. Let's talk about the functions of the various materials. What do these materials play, or this cooking, what we are going to use to cook? Factors. What do they play? What role do they play? Chlorophyll. That green plants are able to trap or absorb energy from the sun using chlorophyll. Number two, water and then minerals from the soil are absorbed through the root hairs of the plant. So water helps to actually dissolve the minerals, and then by root hairs they move. Absorption of carbon dioxide through the stomata of the leaf is also very, very important. And then sunlight, whereby chlorophyll traps the light from the sun. All right. Now let's go to the importance of photosynthesis. Before I get here, let me just go back a bit and explain this to you before I forget. There we are. You can't talk about the chemical equation of photosynthesis without making sure that the whole equation is balanced. Every chemical equation needs to be balanced before it can be termed as a chemical equation. So let me draw a very big line here, whereby I separate the reactant from the product. So I write here reactant, and then at this side I write here product. All right, we should always be sure that any element that we have here has the same number with the other side. So the left hand side, right hand side must be the same. All right, let's look at the element here. We have C for carbon, we have O for oxygen, we have H. So we also have the same thing here, C, O, and then H, as it can all be seen at both sides. So I have the left hand side and I also have the right hand side. On the left hand side, where I have the reactant, what are the elements present? We have carbon. How many atoms of carbon do I have here for the equation to be balanced actually? So I have C. How many C do I have at the left hand side? Okay, I have 6. So the number of atoms for carbon is 6. Number of atoms for oxygen, only under carbon dioxide, only under this one. So only under carbon dioxide, I have 12 atoms of oxygen. Why? Because I have 6 written boldly in front of the whole compound, and I have 2 written as a subscript. So I have 6 written boldly in front of C as carbon, and I have 2 written as a subscript of O. So 2 times the 6 will give me the total number of atoms that I have for oxygen, which is 12. So I come to the other side of oxygen, whereby I also have 6 going through. So because the 2 is not affecting the O, but for only the H, then it means that the H here is 12 for only the side. So 12 here, and then the O here is also 6. So for only carbon dioxide, we had 12 atoms of carbon, and then with water, we had 6 atoms of water. Now let's go to this side and see. How many atoms of carbon do we have there? This one is so visible. So The number written as a subscript for C is 6. So you just write it that way. H here is 12. So you write here 12. But unfortunately, O here is also 6. So for only glucose or sugar, we have O here to be 6. But the O is not done. There's another O for oxygen, whereby we have 6 and then a subscript of 2. So 6 times 2 also give me total of 12. So here is 18. Here is 18. Let's see whether they are balanced. So on the carbon, I have 6 atoms of carbon for the reactant, 6 atoms of carbon for the product. That is right. 18 atoms of oxygen for the reactant and 18 atoms of oxygen for product. And the last but not the least is 12 atoms for both oxygen and then. Just know how this is done, and then you know that when this one is right, then the chemical equation is absolutely correct. Okay, let's go to the importance of photosynthesis to plants and animals. The first is that photosynthesis is the number one supplier of oxygen to all living organisms. So if there is no photosynthesis, then it means that we wouldn't have enough oxygen for humans and animals. Humans and animals are the so reliant on oxygen. Plants do not need enough oxygen for anything, but we need it for tissue respiration. So the more plants we have, the more oxygen that will avail themselves to us for use. Without photosynthesis, carbon cycle would not occur, and all other organisms that depend on oxygen for survival would die. So if there's no photosynthesis, there wouldn't be carbon dioxide being taken by plant and then giving out oxygen in return. Number 2, it is by this process that food is also made available for all types of consumers to have access. So whether you are a primary consumer, a secondary consumer, a tertiary consumer, you definitely rely on photosynthesis to be able to get all that you need. Because as plants are able to also produce food and grow, they bear fruit, they bear seeds, their roots, they are all that are also used by human beings and animals as food, actually. And then you also remember that herbivores are animals that also depend solely on plants for food. So if there are no plants, then they can't have food, and so they will die. And if they die, then it means that we also don't have food for other carnivores. Number 3, photosynthesis also reduces the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. How is that? Now, people smoke, we burn the vegetation or the bushes, fumes from cars all go up to disturb the ozone layer. That's how come the temperatures are actually very high. So if there are no plants to absorb them, then there will be what is called global warming. And we cannot just stand it. All right. That is also, this is because plants trap some of the carbon dioxide to reduce the occurrence of global warming. Global warming is just the deposition of so much carbon atoms into the atmosphere, which is why the temperatures at this environment is different from in the higher up, because who actually goes there to ride or to drive cars or smokes or burn bushes up there? No. That is why whenever the warm air actually moves or goes up and it gets into the colder regions, it might now condense because that place is colder. This place is warm. So all glaciers will be melted, and then we have what is called global warming, and then the effect is just tremendous. All right. Assessment time. Number 1, why is the sun the primary source of energy in the ecosystem? Why do you think the sun is the only or is the main source of energy for the entire ecosystem? Is just talk about the living organisms and how they interact with things in their environment. So whenever you say an ecosystem, is you, the living organism, and whatever you see or is located around you. Good. So how come the sun is the primary source of energy in the ecosystem? Number 2, outline the factors necessary for photosynthesis. So before plants can prepare their own food, what are the cooking materials that are needed? Number 3, briefly explain how plants prepare their food. And then you tell me how plants are able to prepare their own food. So we know plants must gather some material that are needed or cooking apparatus as sunlight, chlorophyll, water, carbon dioxide. And then we have to come to the chemical whereby water actually splits into different molecules, whereby you have hydrogen molecules and oxygen molecules. And hydrogen molecules actually attaches itself onto the carbon dioxide to form glucose, and then plants will now have the energy to have their food. Let me take you through a recap. The topic for today was photosynthesis, and then we spoke about it being a term of 2 words, photo and synthesis. Photo means light, synthesis means putting together. Okay, and then we said that some of the things that are being put together for plants to be able to have the energy to prepare their own food: sunlight, chlorophyll, water, and then carbon dioxide. Now, how do these get into the plant? Water and then minerals are absorbed into the root hairs. The chlorophyll traps the heat or the energy or the light from the sun. The carbon dioxide also moves to the stomata of the leaf. And then, yeah, we have all that. So if all those are just present, then we go to the chemical reaction whereby the molecules of hydrogen attaches itself with that of carbon dioxide, and then glucose is formed, and the process of food is obtained for plants to grow. We also spoke about some of the importance. So we have the chemical equation here, some of the importance of photosynthesis to plant and animals. We said the number 1 supplier of oxygen to all living organisms. Without that, carbon cycle will not occur, and other organisms cannot depend or will not have the survival. Also, the process whereby food avails itself to all types of consumers. And then last one is also reduces the carbon compounds in the atmosphere, which will, as a result, also reduce what is called global warming in the environment. Please pick your books again and write these exercises, because I will take you through the next time I meet you. Why is sun the primary source of energy in the ecosystem? Outline the factors necessary for photosynthesis to occur, and then explain how plants prepare their food. Now, that is all about that. When I come next time, we'll go to the other side of photosynthesis, where we delve better, or probably we'll talk about food and nutrition. So please read the notes and then do more of research. And then when I come, the class will be interesting for all of us. Till I come back into your homes again, I'm always a science teacher for junior high schools. My name is Opoku. Until I meet you again, I say bye-bye.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Joy Learning TV.